2 p.m. in New York City, and you have just stepped onto the ascending way. This path goes upward from the realm of matter into the realm of spirit. We travel this pathway together so that we may reach the pinnacle as one. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ascending Way. Of course, those of you who've been here before know I'm Al Anderson. I have the honor of hosting an incredible guest today. I put up in the show's preview page on the website a question: how do you describe the sky? And I said the same question applies to our guest, Iona Miller. And I, in the blurb, said I won't try, but I'll tell you this. You describe the sky by saying it's vast, it's deep, and it's above our heads. Now, I'm going to let the sky introduce herself in just a few moments, but let me give you this background. Iona Miller is a consultant and transdisciplinarian, a nonfiction writer for both the academic and popular press. She's a hypnotherapist and multimedia artist. Her work is omnisensory, meaning all senses, a fusion of sacred activism, intelligence, science, art, chaos theory, quantum physics, and emergent paradigm shift melding, experimental psychotherapy, new physics, biophysics, philosophy, cosmology, healing, creativity, Kabbalah, magic, the paranormal, and dirty tricks, media ecology, mind control, paramedia, metaphysics, and cultural change. Now, I have the honor of introducing our luminary today. Iona, say hello to the listeners of Ascending Way.
Well, hello, Al, and thanks for having me on the Ascending Way. I'm really anxious to talk with your listeners.
Okay, I wish that you could see me. I am bowing from the waist as I sit here right now. It's actually a real
well,
honor.
I am not worthy.
Oh, yes, I think you are. You're just all of that in a bag of chips. You know, people think I'm a pretty smart fellow, but I am almost in awe of the level of your accomplishments, the range of your interest, and the ability you have to express yourself in so many different areas.
You know, when it's your passion, it's impossible not to go in that direction. You know,
yes.
You have the energy for the research, and then you have something to say about it, and you just say it. And, you know, if genius shows up occasionally, then that's great, too. But I don't claim it. Well,
you certainly represent it. I will share something with our listeners since this is an audio medium. Since you can't see Iona Miller, I'm going to go back to Ione, but Iona Miller. I first encountered Iona as a member of Tribe.net, and I saw this picture of this really incredibly beautiful woman, and it's like, whoa, she's really something else. And then I went to her profile page, and I saw some other pictures of her, and her eyes were the most powerful things I have seen in I don't know how long, and they really drew me in, and I said, this is some substantial person. We have communicated a few times online and through email exchanges, and I cannot help but be more and more and more impressed with everything I learn about her. I have visited your website countless times. The first time I went to your website, I think I spent maybe 4 hours there. Yeah, it was, and I'm not someone that spends a lot of time on other people's websites. So,
well, when you say my website, I have about 50 of them, so it's hard to say where you were, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I think the first one I went to was your homepage with your collected works. It might have been the first one. I know I spent a lot of time with that one, particularly your art. Your artwork is amazing. I have a number of artist friends, and I've shared links to your gallery with them, and I've gotten some incredible comments back upon them. I'm hoping one or two of them are going to call in today. Before we go any further, could you share with our listeners a short thumbnail sketch about how you came to be the person you are? Where'd you come from? How'd you get here?
Oh, boy. Well, I originally come from the Los Angeles area and decided to leave there when I was quite young, and the first place that I moved to was Ojai, California. And, of course, this was in the late 60s, and there were a lot of things going on, but what was going on there that always had been was it's a theosophical hotbed. And also at the time, Krishnamurti was still there getting the start up for his foundation. So I was exposed to some really high-quality alternative thought quite early on, and kept my interest in that, and also deduced from my experience there with various people who'd been in that scene for quite a while what seemed to be the most interesting angles and what kinds of things I didn't want to do in terms of following other people or getting involved in the cliquishness of spiritual groups and that sort of thing, the kind of thing we've seen quite a bit in the spiritual marketplace in later years.
Well, definitely.
Then after that, I moved to the Santa Cruz Mountains for a while, and then up to Southern Oregon, where I had a lot of time to study and, really explore the different kinds of things that became of interest to me. And what I pulled out of Theosophy was that magic seemed to be the most intriguing element. So I, got into that for quite a few years, wound up marrying Richard Iona Miller, who also had the same kind of interest in magic and ran a giant occult bookstore in the Seattle area. And the two of us were sort of a power couple in that arena and knew all the people in that genre. And, had a bunch of amazing contacts, sort of like the Gurdjieff thing, meetings with, improbable people.
Yes,
and it sort of took off from there. I started to wonder if I was maybe a little bit crazy, so I began studying Jungian psychology and later got into hypnotherapy and did about 10 years of practice there. And the rest is history.
Okay, and an amazing history it has been. When did you start going into the paradigm that you describe as depth psychology? Was that in the same period?
Yes,
or was it alchemy first?
Well, I don't see any of these subjects for myself as being separate. They're all so intertwined. But, of course, Jung did talk quite a bit about alchemy, and that's the basis of our book, The Modern Alchemist, which discusses the basics of modern alchemy addressed to the reader so that when you're having certain kinds of experiences, it gives you the language that helps describe those experiences and also generalize them, so that you come to understand that they're collective as well as personal experiences.
Okay. And it seems as though you were really on the cutting edge of that before this became very popularized. How long ago were you promulgating these concepts?
Certainly in the 60s and the 70s, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah. So I guess you've been ahead of the curve on just about everything. It's almost difficult to get a grip on where to start discussing your work. So I'd really prefer to have you kind of lead that. What would you like the listeners to take away from this short hour we have together as an idea of what your work is centered on, who you are as a practitioner?
Well, as a practitioner, I'm sort of pro bono at large. I just deal with what God puts in my way, God being, the chaotic element of life.
Okay.
And as far as the center of it, I like to think of myself more like a quantum probability cloud that doesn't collapse into a wave function. I live in a few time zones simultaneously, and, it's hard for me to even determine where I'm at any particular time. The way I operate is I get fully immersed in whatever I'm working on at the time and sort of cut bait on whatever was the last thing. And these past couple of days, I've been writing an article called Spy C, which is part of my conspirituality work, and it's sort of a review of CIA spy films. So, the last couple of days have been all about that. But then again, that's certainly not the center of my universe. It's hard for me to pick a topic in life as well as, in terms of writing and publishing. That's why my work is so circular. I keep coming back to my myriad subjects over and over again and reworking them or coming back with new knowledge or, new contacts and new input.
Yeah, right now everyone's attention is focused, of course, on the economy and the sideshow of the presidential election. One of the things that I have a lot of discussions with listeners and people in my personal life is finding a sort of a new social paradigm that's more based in the uncertainty principle, and it's also based in a transcendental kind of existence. What do you see us as a species trending toward now as far as our social organizations go?
Well, I'd like to say that we're on the ascending way, and hopefully there will be some changes. A friend of mine, Mike Mandeville, and I called the economic meltdown in 2003, and we called it for '06, but the housing bubble kind of kept it falsely propped up for another couple of years. So, you know, in terms of being a one-person think tank kind of looking toward the future, that's what I'm trying to collect a lot of my more brilliant friends together and try to get some of their forward-thinking ideas on what some of these directions could be. And the fact is that none of us know. It really is in that chaos theory sort of situation where it's just evolving on its own, and it's going to involve some catastrophe. And just like in therapy, in the therapeutic process, things generally get worse before they get better. So that's naturally part of what we've been seeing, to the point where that sounds like a cliche, but you know, it's like in Shakespeare in Love. Well, we're hoping it's going to be okay, but we just don't know exactly how.
Well, exactly. Now, one of the things that I'm so taken with is how completely unaware most of us in our society are to the forces and individuals that control our society, the controllers. It's as though they have a glamour around them that doesn't allow us to see through that glamour. But I encounter... Okay, I'm sorry.
I share your pain there.
But you know, I'm encountering more and more people, particularly the younger people now, who just the glamour doesn't work for them. They see it. They just it's not there for them. It's like, well, what do you mean you don't see who's doing this to you? You know.
Well, I think you're right, and that's why I haven't focused on books as much as multimedia, because I want to address that younger generation and not just my peers, the baby boomers. Mm-hmm. You know, what is outrageous in a certain generation and age group in terms of their thinking, for them it's just a given. It's the way things are. They don't have that mystification, you know, politically and socially that blocks the way. They don't have the economic investment in the old ways.
Oh, yeah. One of the phrases that I encounter on your website that's like really descriptive of the energy I try and bring to things, and I'd like you to comment on this, is the concept of integrative cultural transformation. Our culture is so broken apart into constituencies that we almost don't actually have a culture anymore. What do you see as the potential culture we can evolve?
Well, that's a big piece of work.
Well, you're a genius, you know. So.
Well, again, I'm not going to own that, but thank you.
Okay. Well, to whom? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I think that certain subcultures can certainly shed light on things. Even the academic circles are generally sort of boxed in by, you know, the traditional way of dealing with things like tenure and, you know, what's okay to teach and all of those kinds of things. So people are really seeking alternative means of gaining knowledge, and knowledge is becoming more and more targeted to their specific interests.
Yes.
You know, soon our computers will be telling us what it thinks we would like to know about. Mm-hmm. And so naturally the revolution in technology is probably the biggest part of that. In terms of responding to that, I like to try to find those places in culture where I can use the least energy to make the biggest change. Again, in terms of chaos theory, that's sort of one of the principles. Mm-hmm. And so what I've done is put a very light foot into the intelligence world, where I can have that input in terms of what I feel is the most important and, see what kind of response I can get based on that, rather than avoiding those institutions and those people that people generally like to make the enemy.